All right, welcome to our session today. This one, for this episode, we're saying, It's not my fault. Are you sure? And our subject today is self responsibility. So, who you're being determines the quality of your experience. And as we all know, experience is the teacher. So, welcome, Betty. How are you today?
I'm fine.
Excellent. And as you all know, we're sponsored by the Institute of Metaphysical Science. Website is scientificmetaphysics.org. Please go out and see there's materials out there. There's different activities and all kinds of stuff. We'd love your support. So let's jump in. Why this subject and why now, Betty?
Well, usually in everyday living, we don't do anything very generative or creative until something makes us sufficiently dissatisfied or restless that we take action. And when you take action is when you experience or teach yourself something. So, in a sense, the dissatisfaction that you experience promotes your growth. The thing that's interesting about self-responsibility is that we, as two-legged animals, always take a look at what's going on, some of which is not my fault at all. And it's that area that we're addressing this evening.
Right.
When you say it's not my fault, I say, are you sure? Is there more than one presence? Is there more than one mind? Is there more than one intelligence? Well, what do you mean it's not your responsibility?
Well, what I want to draw a distinction of, and that you just said that, but before you said that, you said fault. So distinguish the difference between fault and blame versus responsibility.
Yeah, well, fault and blame are really human versions of not wanting to take responsibility. But in reality, if we're living metaphysics the way we study it and the way it states itself, we don't have a scapegoat like that.
Right.
Either all is infinite mind, the mind being me right now, or it's not.
Right.
And if it is, then the question is, how come I'm growing that experience for myself rather than it's not my fault?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Well, let's dive right in.
Okay.
So on Mind is the Athlete, in your book, Mind is the Athlete, on page 38, you say, breaks in the norm of what's acceptable in any area, be it food, clothes, housing, furnishings, lifestyle, or career, show up occurring in response to limitation that's no longer acceptable.
Show up as evolutionary changes. Did you skip that?
No, it wasn't in there.
Well, it's in what I sent you.
Oh, as evolutionary changes occurring. Okay, hang on. Hang on. I did mess that up. Just a minute. Hide. I shall fix it right now.
Thank you.
Save. Okay. So we'll start over. It's not my fault. All right. So
exactly.
So Mind is the Athlete, page 38, breaks in the norm of what's acceptable in any area, be it food, clothes, housing, furnishings, lifestyle, or career, show up as evolutionary changes occurring in response to limitation that is no longer acceptable.
Yeah.
So say more about that.
Well, those are just a lot of words saying that something has occurred, which I call in my book an evolutionary change. Something has occurred in response to a limitation that's no longer acceptable to me. And when that occurs, I take action. And the look of that in human living is things change. Kind of shakes up the scenery a bit.
Right.
Yeah. And what it does is open up new possibilities that you were not open to until you got dissatisfied or feeling limited. So all of those experiences of so-called dissatisfaction or limitation or restriction, all of those are really what provoke us to step outside of the norm that's going on for us at that moment, which opens us to new possibilities. a new, oh my, didn't know that, didn't see that before.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine that. I could try that. Wonder what that would look like. A whole new area that you can explore, a whole new way to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. Now, going on in Mind is the Athlete on page 125, you say responsibility involves identifying source, the being that has everything in the universe show up. So you've got fault and blame, there's human picture stuff, right? About what you're seeing. And then you've got responsibility, which really looks at identifying source, which is cause, or the being that has everything in the universe show up. So that would be more similar to just identifying the divinity present.
Yeah, it's what we often call the God idea,
Mm-hmm.
the generative quality that being is.
Yep.
And it shows up individually according to the perception that's going on as you're living, you're living of yourself.
Yeah.
I have a point of view, and that point of view is a language that I understand. And what I also know is it's the only way that right now I can see or even reckon with my own being divinely.
Mm-hmm.
So what it looks like for me is different than what it looks like for you or for anyone else. But until I take responsibility for the way my world is showing up, I have no opportunity to be myself. And taking responsibility includes things like being answerable, being accountable. It's really addressing all of the stuff that we live every day as if it were not I. I've got a lot of stuff going on, and if I humanly don't like it, it's not I. How could I do that? But if I'm living divinely, I recognize there's only one source. Everything in my universe has value for me, or it wouldn't be there.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't have any not I. And so in my daily living, the occasion arises quite often for me to let go of the not I and start being whole and complete and fulfilled and satisfied. And so it's the dissatisfaction, the incomplete feeling, the dis-ease, if I can call it that, that's a wake-up call. It says, hey, if there's only one thing going on, who else is there? And humanly speaking, that makes no sense at all.
Right.
But in the nature of divine being, that one thing is all you've ever got to work with. All is infinite mind, infinitely manifest. Here I am, and this is the world I've got going on.
Right. So if I've got something showing up and I'm pretty much upset about it and I don't like the way it looks and whatever, and in the injustice of it all that kind of stuff, what do I need to do, or what does that look need to be, do you think, in terms of just asking the question to get to the source, as opposed to letting all the rest of it just kind of be?
Well, I have an example in my recent experience.
All right.
I had a charge on my credit card that was not justified in my point of view. I had not agreed to it. And so I took issue with it. And the more I took issue with it, the worse it got. And it went back and forth and back and forth. And in my complaining about it, I think you were the one that said, well, they're hoping that you'll just give up on it.
Mm-hmm.
So that made me kind of, I'm not going to give up on it. And then I got to looking at that and I thought, if all is infinite mind, what are you doing here? Is this something that you need to take issue with to the degree of not living yourself divinely? but wrestling with the picture in the effort to manipulate it, to change it, to fix it, to have it agree with your human belief about it. Is that what you're up to? And I got to really looking at that, and I thought, it's ridiculous. I can't fix that picture. I'm growing the picture. You can't fix something you're making. So I thought, well, then I'll just stop doing that. And what am I going to do instead? I'm not going to ignore it. But what I'm going to see is that the tendency to let go of your certainty about what's going on, of your, for years, I've been a student of all is infinite mind, infinitely manifest. And now all of a sudden that's not true. Well, how about that? So I decide I better take a look at what's going on here. Mm-hmm. Do I really want to resolve that problem? Yes, I do. Do I want to resolve it by wrestling with it, manipulating it, screaming and hollering, making a fuss? Or do I want to say, wait a minute, that's a wake-up call. It's time for you to let go of your belief about Betty and see that there's one intelligence functioning. Mm-hmm. All is infinite intelligence functioning perfectly. And who says it isn't just fine? Mm-hmm. So I stopped that. I'm not going to say it isn't fine. I'm going to say it's a good wake-up call.
Yeah.
So I get back on track and leave it alone.
Yeah.
I don't know how it's going to look, but I know that I'm fine.
And you took all the actions that there were there to take. The issue was, it's not the actions you take or don't take. It's the who you be in the taking of them.
That's right.
Right? So it's not.
And even though I thought I did intelligent things, they mm-hmm. came back asking me the same old questions. And then I discovered they weren't happy unless I used their words to mm-hmm. tell them about the problem.
Right.
They were not willing to read my words.
Right.
And so what was I going to do? Wrestle with that?
Right.
Or just say, wait a minute.
Yep. You do what there is to do and you walk on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's a piece. So in getting clear about source, you can drop your opinions and your judgments and your all that stuff, and you can just do the action that's there to do right in front of you and be mm-hmm. totally free in the doing of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. That's cool. Now, in your next quote, Mind is the Athlete, page 134, you say, students of this science, learn to be responsible and aware in their speaking and listening in place of unconscious and random.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we just kind of talked about with your example.
Yep.
Like unconscious and random would be complain and bitch and moan and all that stuff about it, and the pain, all that. Whereas conscious, you started to look at, well, wait a minute, who am I being? And it's not like you gave up the action of what there was to do. You still took it, but you took it being free and clear about cause and the matter and source.
Yep.
Yeah. Anything more on that one?
Well, no, but I have to tell you, it's not easy to evaluate or live yourself divinely when you're sufficiently impressed that what's going on there isn't okay. It's not easy to let go of that.
Right.
What I notice is that even though I stopped doing the resistance act, because that just makes things persist.
Right.
I just cut that out, and I could intellectually see that if science is stating things correctly, and all is infinite mind in action, calling itself Betty, the smart thing to do is to let that science function and keep Betty out of the picture. Mm-hmm. It's a huge two-legged thing.
Right.
Which is exactly what I was working to do. But I noticed that even after I got clear that that was the only way to go, every once in a while I think to myself, I wonder if they'll ever figure this out.
Right. Right.
And the answer is no, because I'm the only one figuring it out.
Right.
They are never going to figure it out.
Right.
So if my freedom comes, the world is free.
Right. And it's not dependent on a particular look and a particular circumstance or set of circumstances, or whether they refund you that money or not.
Yeah, and I remember I can't quite remember all the details, but I remember that somebody came up to Bicknell Young, one of his students, and he complained. And he says, I had that sale all locked up, but then Joe or Charlie or whoever it was came over and he took that customer right out from under my nose. And guess what got said to him? Because he thought there would be some intervention to straighten that picture out. And the response was, oh, well, forget about him and go sell to somebody else.
Right.
Which he did.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, look how self-righteous we are about how it should look.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
In Mind is the Athlete, you go on to say, willingness to be self-responsible in human living involves a sense of self that owns its own voice, stating the facts, in place of blindly accepting appearances as real, determines the quality of your human experience. So that's a lot of what we've just been talking about. Is I think it gets down to, are you willing? Are you willing to have it look exactly the way it does and exactly the way it doesn't?
Yeah, and it isn't, blind acceptance doesn't do much, but informed acceptance, allowing it to be, handles the whole thing.
Yeah.
And informed acceptance is the recognition that it's exactly right for this moment, because you are informing yourself about who you're being right now, and right now, and right now. You're not really in the business of living in a human life and straightening it all out over there. Do you know?
Right.
Yeah, it's a persistent situation in human living. I always think the way that looks makes a difference. It never makes a difference. Who I'm being makes a difference. Never what it looks like.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Now we go into Mary Baker Eddy in Science and Health, where she says on page 62, our false views of life hide eternal harmony and produce the ills of which we complain.
What we've been talking about all
That's
this
right. Our false views, like our view of the circumstances and and then the injustice of it all. And it should be this way and it doesn't look this way. And you're attached to the picture of what you think it should be, but it's not. And you
I'm not going to let him get away with that.
Right. And I remember growing up and hearing complaint is poverty.
Yeah.
And so that's that one. Very good. Anything more on that?
Yeah, because that's really a biggie, that statement that Mrs. Eddy made. It's our view of what's going on that hides harmony. It's just a point of view. There's not a wall there. There's not an army marching there interrupting my sense of harmony. It's my false view.
Yeah.
For heaven's sakes. So that produces the ills of which we complain. And it could be the cancer, it could be the broken foot, it could be the lost opportunity, could be the job that's not doing the thing it should be, could be relationships, could be any kind of a problem. But what produces that is a false view of life.
Right.
Life with a capital L, the God idea in action.
Yes.
Our false view of what sources what's going on.
Right. So then going back to willingness to be self-responsible in human living evolves a sense of self that owns its own voice.
Yes.
And that's the distinction. Otherwise, you've got the false view and the ills of which you complain. And you're a victim.
That's right. And you live yourself as a victim totally. Good.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Now in Science and Health on page 166, she says, as a man thinketh, so is he. That's really Shakespeare, right? Mind is
for the whole thing.
Right. As a man thinketh, so is he. Mind is all that feels, acts, or impedes action. So unpack that a little bit. Mind is all that feels, acts, or impedes action.
Yeah. Source. What has you occur? Being. the God idea. That's all that feels, acts, or does anything impedes action.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing else is causative.
Yeah, that's when
Nothing
you
else
say,
is generative.
yeah, that's when
Nothing
you
else
say,
doesn't occur.
that's
Excuse
when you
me.
say that which sits in a chair doesn't think.
Yeah, I can't think.
So it's not about this,
That's right.
right? So it's
But
the
it's about the
being,
being that has this occur,
right?
calling itself Betty.
Mm-hmm.
That being, that's the only thing that has any feeling. Betty doesn't have the capacity to feel.
Right. And that is the mind. That's mind, capital M, is all that feels, acts, or impedes action.
Mm-hmm.
It's all who you're being. So when you identify cause, identify source, then what you'll have come up is exactly the action, right?
And it won't be personal.
Mm-hmm. Say
It
more
won't
about
be
that.
how smart I am. I figured
Right.
that out.
All right.
None of that.
Okay. Very good. Now, on page 167 of Science and Health, she said, our proportionate admission of the claims of good or of evil determines the harmony of our existence.
Yeah.
And that's all about your point of view, what you
Yeah.
buy in the picture, what you acknowledge as source, right? Versus what you acknowledge as source.
We have an expression now that brings up every time I see that quote, and that is, don't go there.
Okay, say more.
Our proportionate admission of the claims of good or of evil, our admission of that.
Determines the harmony of our existence.
Yeah. It's like, what's the sentence? And I want to go with that. It's wherever you go, there you are.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you say don't go there, what are you saying?
I'm saying, cut it out. This belief that you're a two-legged animal and can make a difference. Don't go there, because when you go there, there you are.
Right. Yeah, I got to relay a story. Yeah, let me relay a story. So we were at Lake Powell. We're on our way back to Minnesota. So we were at Lake Powell, and we're supposed to be there 2 nights. We ended up staying 4 nights. And one of those days, we went on a drive around, and we found someone said, go down and check out Lone Rock. So we thought, okay, great. So we go down to check out Lone Rock, and it's this off. And because we wanted to get closer to the water, because the water is really low right now. So to hike down to the water is like a forever trip. And so we wanted to see if we could get closer to the water and let Tally go swimming. So we drove down there, and it's off-road, and there's, once you get past the paved part, it's just dirt and sand. Okay. So we get down there, and in some cases the sand is pretty deep, but we kept going. We kind of made it all in there. Now we don't have a 4-wheel drive Sprinter, but at any rate, so we get down there, and then we turn and we go across, and we thought we saw a place where if you go down far enough, we could get really close to the water. Okay. So we went all the way across, and there are parts, and you're starting to look at the ground, like what parts can you make it through and what parts not. And so anyways, there was a place that we might be able to park, and I went and turned, and I went right into some deep sand, and we were stuck, like literally up halfway up the tires, dug in. And so some people came to help us and whatnot and got us out of there. And we made some friends and whatever. And that was kind of, it was this camaraderie, but there were people there, and we weren't stuck more than 20 minutes, and we were unstuck, and we were parked, and we were walking down to the water, to which we were very grateful and glad that we weren't the only ones out there by ourselves. So anyways, we're driving yesterday. And we're driving through Utah, and there's this place called Pink Sands, the Pink Sand Dunes. And so I didn't know how far it was. I thought, oh, I don't know, let's just go. So on a whim, I just really quickly took a left turn, and down the road we went. And there was a van not too far along. There was a van on the right side of the road, stuck down to the axle. There was a car stopped to help them. And Jen was like, oh, they have help. Just keep going. No, stop. Let's see if we can help, because we were really glad when people helped us. So we pulled over. I put my flashers on, and cars drove the other way. And one of them stopped and turned around, who's in a Subaru. Ends up he's a first responder. So we ended up, and he brought 2 shovels. So Jen got busy digging out one side and creating this thing. We came up with a plan, all of us together, and there's these 2 women in this van. And I tell you what, I learned out of each incident. I looked at Jen afterwards. We got the van got out, and after, and then we made some friends again. And this guy was really, really great that responded and really, helped clear stuff out and help us make a plan. But I learned, just by looking, Jen had suggested, well, maybe there's a rock we could put under the tire to help get some traction. And he brought back like 4 rocks and just laid them right behind each other. So not only would one rock get traction, but the other ones would too, right? And so sure enough, we got that van out of there. And I thought, wow, that all of that learning that was in there. But the only, and who knows why I turned up that road to go look at pink sands, because it wasn't on our trajectory at all, except for Jen and I looked at it. And Jen said to me, she said, you know what? I woke up this morning thinking, I want to see how many people I can leave a smile on their face. And so we high-fived it and we were like, right on,
Yeah.
And
Be the reason someone smiles.
and be the reason somebody smiles today, was what she said. So that was just part of it. But it's all the same thing as you can either be like, isn't that horrible? And, well, those suckers are stuck.
Too bad about that.
Yeah, too bad about that. But it was a wholly different experience, which was really, really amazing, right?
Yeah.
All the way around.
That's great.
And it felt really, really great too. So
Yeah. Now that's a proportionate experience
mm-hmm.
of dealing with the picture.
Mm-hmm.
And you dealt with it from the standpoint of what was possible.
Yeah.
So it determined the harmony of your existence.
Yeah. There you go. Right there. Yeah, very fun. And then let's see.
No dark 10.
We've got on page 170, spiritual causation is the one question to be considered, for more than all other spiritual causation relates to human progress.
Yep.
So say more, unpack that a little bit. I'm confused by this statement.
Well, Source, as a spiritual presence, is the only thing you need to consider. It wasn't trying to figure out what Kim could do, or Betty could do, or Jen could do, or the helpers could do. It was, there is one source of action, and that's divine, whole, perfect, complete, joyous, free, right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, more than all others, acknowledgement of that source relates to human progress.
Yes.
It shows up in your human living, because your human living is the language of your understanding of spiritual being.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So all of it shows up in your human living. It's who you're being.
That's right.
Yeah.
Back to the same little.
And then it goes back to determines the harmony.
Yeah.
Or disharmony. The level of which.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Fun. All right. And then in Christian Healing, I think is the book. I just said CH.
Yeah.
The truth is that we are to work out our own salvation and to meet the responsibility of our own thoughts and acts.
Yeah. See, you really got to get at a kind of a gut level, the oneness of being.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't anyone out there. Being is one presence.
Mm-hmm.
Your experience of that is your own divine being, the only way you can see it.
Mm-hmm.
So there isn't anybody else to work anything out.
Right.
It's all one thing going on. It's all me dealing with all of my stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality of me.
Right.
Or the unreality of me.
Right.
Or the look of me, or why it isn't looking the way I want it to look.
Right.
All of that stuff is all a kind of a me thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, until I can leave the basis of belief that thinks Betty has something to do with that,
right,
and go back to source and allow that to be the generative presence.
Yeah.
Until I can do that, I'm just going to be in one mess after another.
Right.
But I can leave it alone and say, wait a minute, just wait a minute. It's just one thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
Being itself, being me is all that's going on. And it's whole and it's complete and it's perfect right now.
Mm-hmm.
And Betty may never see it, but that's the fact going on. And I'm going to hang with it right now.
Yeah. Yeah, very good. Because it's all self-responsibility.
That's right.
Yeah. And then our final quote from the Bible, Galatians 6:7, whatever a man soweth, that shall he also reap.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go.
There's nothing else. It's all up to the individual.
Yeah, if you believe you're a two-legged animal, you'll have what others have, do what others do, be, whatever. If you
Have
sort,
others,
if you free yourself up to source, then you have possibility.
That's right. Yep.
Well, very good. All right. Well, that's it for today. If you've loved this conversation, you can put a heart or a like, a thumbs up. We would love it. And if you have any subjects, any questions, anything like that, please put them in the comments. We will check those. And we will see you next week at the same time, 5 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Central. And until then, have a terrific week.
Thank you.